I'm Dr. Melinda Freckleton with Haymarket Vet Service, and we're going to talk about how to take this bandage off of Leo and change it with the assumption that he has a wound underneath. So, safety first. You can see that I'm in a position that I can get up and down and move easily with him. I always have a hand on the leg, so if it swings towards me, I can defend myself and move with him easily, because this kind of silliness is pretty common with the hind legs. So our first step is going to be to take the tape off that's securing the outer bandage. I have everything else I'm going to need that we talked about previously assembled and ready to go. And I'm going to take this off smoothly, and as I go, I'm going to roll it, not the way I'm going to use it again, but in a way that I can keep control of it. So if he starts dancing around and being silly, I'm not going to drop it and have either of us tangled in it. So I'm just rolling it in on itself as I go. He took his tail knot out, so before I get his wound exposed, I'm going to tie that back up. That was in there for a reason, so that he can't put his dirty tail hair into his wound. And now I'm going to take this layer off just the same way. And now we have the layer that's protecting the actual, happily in this case, imaginary wound. Before I get close to my wound, I'm going to put on gloves so that I don't introduce any of my natural skin germs, even though my hands are pretty clean, into his wound. And so that any infection he might have can't get into the open wounds that may be on my hands. And let's be honest, most of us horse people always have open wounds on our hands. So I'm not going to startle him. I'm coming up again, still with my feet on the ground so I can move if he does. And I'm going to cut this bandage off smoothly. I could unroll it too. We're pretending this one of his many spots is his wound. Happily, he doesn't have a real one to show you. How you specifically deal with the wound is going to vary a lot depending on exactly what's wrong with your horse, and the details of that will vary. But in general, you're going to clean the wound off. So I have clean loose cotton with Novasan, which is a common medical disinfectant, and I'm going to gently clean the wound area. If this spot was the wound, I'd start right on the wound and then work outward in concentric circles so that I don't drag any dirt that's further away into the wound. I want to start at the point that I want to be cleanest, even if at the start that's our dirtiest spot. And we'll do that a few times, or as our vet has told us for the specific problem he has, until we're pretty happy that the wound is clean and can be wrapped back up. So for that portion, I'm going to start with my nice clean gauze pad. There may be a specific material your vet wants against the wound, again depending on the specifics of the wound. I'm not going to startle the horse every time I approach him. I touch him up high before I go down low on a back leg. I set that over my wound. I hold it with the end of my gauze, and I roll the gauze on. If you have more gauze than you need, you want to have your scissors already handy and ready to go so that you can cut it off. But you do want to use plenty so that there's a good wrap below and a good wrap above, and your gauze stays nice and flat. Your pad stays nice and flat over your wound. Some types of gauze stick nicely so that when you get to the end you can just smooth it and stay. This type does not. So you can just gently tuck the end in. That tiny little wrinkle there is not going to harm anything. This is put on snugly like your helmet. It moves the skin when I move it, but I can stick a finger under and it's not too tight. And that's how you want any bandage material to fit with any of the layers. It's going to be just like your riding helmet. Now I have my cottons, and I'm going to start bandaging. There's a lot of talk, especially from the racetrack, about how you need to start from the inside, go around the cannon, and go to the back. That's not a necessity with this type of wound bandage. But if you're already in that habit and it's easy for you, it's just fine to do. And it may be easier to hold on to this firmly against the leg in a place where you don't have a wound. So you may need to alter that plan depending on where your wound is. So I'm going to hold this firmly against his leg, and I'm going to roll it firmly and smoothly around, tucking the two corners in at the start so that everything is smooth here. A teeny tiny minor wrinkle isn't going to harm anything because you have a lot of layers, but you do want it to be basically very smooth. And again, this layer is firm like your helmet, but not tight. Now, this is the part that gets to where a lot of people feel like they need a million hands. Your trick to make this successful is, I'm going to take this end of my bandage and I'm going to tuck it under the cotton And now I can keep them both firm with the same thumb grip right there. And I twisted a little more than I should to try to show you that, but now that thumb is keeping both of these bandages stable, and as I wrap around, I'm switching thumbs. So now my left thumb is holding, and it's coming around. Like so many physical skills with horses, I can do this really fast and make it look really smooth, and that's because of a lot of practice. So this is something you might want to practice in advance. I'm putting a little extra tension as I come around the cannon, and then as I go back around the tendons, I'm just kind of rolling. And so now tension, and this hand's keeping everything, the left hand's keeping everything steady, the right hand is coming around, putting some tension on, roll. And horses move, so we just wait until he's ready. I can pull on the tail a little bit to encourage him to put the leg down. There's no need for panic, but I keep my hand on the leg so that I can defend myself if he was to try to be really silly. This horse is just tired of me messing with him today. He's not trying to be naughty. Again, notice my feet are staying on the ground. Once in a while, my bad habit is that my right knee's touching the ground, but you do not want to kneel or sit here, and you can see easily why that's true. So I'm going to roll all the way back up. Each wrap of the bandage is covering about 1/3 to 1/2 of its own width, and that keeps the bandage material firm, snug, and unable to slip in a way that's going to constrict on the horse. With this kind of material, I don't want to go over the top or under the bottom of my bandage, the white cotton part, but I do want to stay nice and level with it. And then I get to the end and Velcro it. Some of the really old-fashioned ones have ties, and if you've made one last that long, more power to you, that's perfectly fine. Some of them come with no way to affix them at all, in which case you want to have your tape ready. In this case, my Velcro's old, so I want to give it a little reinforcement so it doesn't come off, and I'm going to put a wrap of tape around to help hold it securely. I'm ripping it on the outside on purpose so that I can open it easily later when I want to do it again. So my total bandage here, the skin wiggles, but it's not super tight. If I stick my finger in here, I could feel like I could leave it in there for an hour and it wouldn't fall asleep or be constricted. But at the same time, there's no way he's gonna wiggle that off, even if he had a big kicking fit.